So 2 months ago, I bought this house with the pooping dog in the front yard.
Yeah, this old thing right here, this is my first investment property. What's up, y'all? Welcome back if you've been following along with the whole renovation process. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Bronson Holbeck, and as you just saw, this is my humble abode. I bought this shortly after graduating college. Total fixer-upper, needed tons of work. We scraped the ceilings, ripped the carpet, tore out cabinets, knocked down walls, and painted the entire house. But even after all that, there's still tons of work to be done. It's gonna take many more months. So if you're interested in following along with the process going forward, subscribe, turn on notifications, drop a like on this video. But now, I wanna talk to you about what I've done the last 10 to 11 years to get me to this point and the 5 steps it took and the 5 steps most everyone's gonna have to take if they wanna buy their first property. So step number 1, save for a down payment. For me, this started back in like 6th grade. I didn't really know what I was saving for or why I was even doing it, but I've just always naturally been frugal, and saving money has kind of been easy to me, and it's something that I've enjoyed. So when I was 12, I started working at the baseball fields that I played baseball at. I'd work weekends when I wasn't playing. I worked some nights after school, and honestly, it was super fun, super awesome. I got to hang out in a place that I really enjoyed and get paid to be there. So it was basically like the perfect job for me at that age. So I worked there for a few years, saved up some decent money, but nothing crazy. Then when I got to high school, I started working at the church that I went to. I'd work 10 to 15 hours a week, still nothing crazy, but it was kind of like the other job, and it was like the perfect job for me at the time. I would literally go there after school, set up some basketball hoops. While teams practice, I get to study and do homework and do things that I'm normally gonna do anyway, but I got paid to do it. So it was perfect for me at that time. Again, helped me save up some money, and it was great. Between working at the baseball fields and working at my church after school, I was able to save up a decent amount of money, but still nothing crazy until my junior year of high school. That's when I really hit it big. So my high school was similar to a lot of other high schools, especially in Texas. Friday night lights were huge. Everyone went to the games, and it got to the point where even the student sections were kind of competing with the other student sections. Who could be crazier, who could be louder. So each year, certain people would sell t-shirts to the student section. We'd have like official student section t-shirts. In my junior year, one of my good friends designed a really awesome t-shirt. Him and I ended up partnering on it. He handled the design, I handled all the sales and the inventory. So I was running back and forth between my apartment and the front gate, collecting money, exchanging t-shirts, selling t-shirts in the hallways at school. So it ended up doing really well, and we got it to the point where a lady in the school was selling them from her office. And that's where it really took off, and we did really well because we could literally just post, okay, t-shirts in this classroom, go pick it up whenever you have time. And then we were able to sell it to people that we didn't know personally, and just anyone in the school could go get them. So I remember going to the office one day after school right before baseball practice with my friend, and we get to the office expecting to make maybe $100, $200, and we get there and the shirts are completely sold out, and the lady just hands us a fat wad of cash. And it was one of the best feelings ever. We ended up doing a couple more orders and ended up doing super well with it. We made a few $1,000s in just a couple of weeks, and being in high school at the time, being able to make that type of money in just a couple of weeks was amazing. We felt like we hit the lottery. My senior year, I ended up selling some more t-shirts. I did 2 more designs senior year. These did pretty well, not nearly as well as that first year, but we were still able to make a profit with it. So between selling t-shirts, working at my church, and working at the baseball field, I was able to save up a little over $5,000 by the time I graduated high school. So shortly after graduating college, I distinctly remember seeing a chart about compound interest, and it just kind of compared 2 people, and it showed what happens if you start investing at this age versus this age, and shows a difference and really how much of an impact it can make starting early. And seeing that was like life-changing. That literally flipped a switch in my brain. And within 1 week, I had opened up an investment account at Edward Jones. So that leads me to step 1.5. Invest in the stock market while you wait to invest in the real estate market. Now this is step 1.5 because it's optional. This is gonna depend on your timeline as well as your risk tolerance. So if you're going to be investing in real estate in less than a year, maybe you don't wanna mess with the stock market, don't wanna mess with the volatility and the risk of it, but that's up to you to decide. For me personally, I knew I had at least 4 years before I was gonna be buying anything. Plus, at that time, real estate wasn't even on my radar yet, but I'll get to that later. So at this point, I've just graduated high school. I'm opening up my first account at Edward Jones. I have $5,000 in cash. I set $2,000 aside for tuition the upcoming fall. I set $1,000 aside in cash, and then I put $2,000 into a Roth IRA. From there, I became absolutely obsessed with investing and everything about it. I worked at a construction company that summer before college. I just dumped everything that I had extra into investments. When I got to college that fall, I started working immediately. I had a busy class schedule, so I worked at a bar so I could work at nights and weekends. At this point, I continued to save, I continued to invest, but I just got really bored with my account at Edward Jones. Checking it every single day, seeing it go up 20 cents, and then down 10 cents, and up 15 cents. It got so boring. So I opened an account with Charles Schwab so I could invest myself, not have a financial advisor do it for me. I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to be in control, and I wanted to learn about it. So I opened an account and I put some money into Apple. It's a solid, nice blue chip stock, but still a little more volatile than the funds I was in. And that was fun for a little bit, but even that got a little boring, so I ended up eventually working my way down to penny stocks, and that's where the real fun started. And this was just motivating me to work more and save more so that I can put as much into investments as possible. It was right around this time that I discovered real estate and all the potential there was investing in it. I saw real estate like a blue chip stock. It was safe, it wasn't going anywhere, it's established, but at the same time it had the earning potential of a smaller stock through adding value. Once I discovered this, I was hooked, I was completely obsessed, I did everything I could to learn about it. I was reading books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and the more I learned, the more I looked up like, what do I need to do to buy my first piece of real estate? What do I need to do to invest in real estate? Everything came down to building your credit. The first thing, everywhere I looked, it was you need to have good credit. So that leads me to step number 2. Build your credit. So there's multiple ways to do this. You can do this through car loans, student loans, any type of loan. Just paying it down and showing a history of paying down your debts is going to help build your credit. But for me personally, I chose to open up a credit card. If you're like me with no credit history, the best option for you is probably going to be a student credit card. But if you have really bad credit and you're trying to rebuild it, you might have to go with a secured credit card. A secured credit card, you're not going to get any benefits, but at least you have a card and at least you have a chance to show that you can pay bills on time and you can start building up your credit from there. So for me, I opened up the Discover Student Cashback Card, $1,500 credit line, 1% cash back, and they match it at the end of each year. So if you can do that instead of the secure, definitely do that because there are some pretty good benefits and there's no annual fee. But there are some things to know about having a credit card and building your credit. It's not just as simple as paying it off each month. Although that is definitely the most important thing. So that kind of goes without saying. Make sure you pay it off every month in full. Don't carry a balance. It's just not smart to carry a balance. You don't want to do it. Don't do it. Another important thing is your utilization. That's how much of the card you're using. So a good rule of thumb is don't spend more than 30% of your limit. Obviously, some months there's some things that come up and you might have to, but try and stay around 30%. So if you have a $1,000 credit line, try not to spend more than $300 without paying it off first. Also, if you do get approved for a card, don't go and apply for a new one a month later. You're going to want to wait at least 6 months before you do that. Applying for multiple cards back to back to back can be bad and hurt your credit. And also, try not to cancel your card. So I still have my Discover Student Card. I rarely ever use it. My everyday card is a Southwest Priority card, but I didn't cancel my student card because there's no annual fee and it's going to hurt my credit to do it. So why do it? There's no point. Might as well just keep it, use it once every few months, but continue to use my better card more often. So I'm going through school, working every semester, paying my tuition as I go, investing any money that I have left over. I get my real estate license. I work 2 commercial real estate internships. I ended up graduating last May with a little over $18,000 in investments and $5,900 in loans. So if you're paying for school yourself, it is possible to do it without a huge pile of loans, but you do need to be strategic about it. For me, that meant going to a community college and then transferring to an in-state school. It meant passing up living at some of the nicer apartments in town. My tuition at the community college was $2,000 a semester, and at A&M it was $6,000. So that's a lot different than trying to pay $30,000 to $60,000 a year for a private school or an out-of-state school. So it can be done. You just have to be strategic about the school that you go to and maybe go to a community college before. I know it's not the most fun thing, but long term, it might be best if you want to reach certain goals by certain times. So at this point, I'm graduated. I have money for a down payment. The next step is step number 3, and that's find a job with a salary. If you're self-employed or you work a job that's mostly commission, you can still buy a house. It's just going to be a little more difficult and it might take a little longer. But for me, wanting to buy a house shortly after graduating, it was important that the job had a salary, and I'll explain why in step number 4, which is meet with a lender. So when you meet with the lender, the whole point of that is to get pre-approved for your loan. And there's 3 things they're going to look for when they do this. 1, your salary. Do you have a full-time job and how much do they pay you? 2, your debt to income ratio. How much is your debt compared to your income? Ideally for this situation, you want it to be no more than 36%. 3, your work history. Do you have a past of working and holding down jobs, or are there long periods of unemployment? So for me, I had a job with salary, check that off the list. I never kept a balance on my credit card, salary was decent, check that off the list. And then work history. That's where it gets a little interesting. So throughout college, obviously I worked for the last 4 years. I had multiple different jobs, but they're all just kind of little jobs here and there, not like a super solid career or anything like that. But if you go to school and you graduate and you have a transcript to prove it, that can count as your work history. So Check that off the list. So if you're self-employed or you work on commission, it's gonna be the same thing for you, just a little bit different. Instead of looking at your salary, they're gonna look at 2 years of tax returns, just to see that you've been able to make that money for 2 years. It's not just 1 month, you had a really good month. So once you can check those 3 things off, you're gonna talk with your lender about your price range and how much you wanna put down, and talk a little more detail about that. So there's a few options for down payments. You can do 3% down, 3.5%, 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. There's all sorts of options that you'll go over. So if your credit score is above 620, you can do a conventional for as little as 3% down. So since you're only doing 3% down, you're gonna pay private mortgage insurance, PMI, until you hit 20% equity. And once you do that, the PMI is gone. And that's gonna be another 80 to 120-ish bucks a month. Now, if you have a lower credit score, but it's still higher than 580, you can do an FHA loan, and then you can get 3.5% down. The issue with this though, PMI is there for life. So there's tons of different options and different programs depending on where you live and what your income is. So this is just a rough overview. You're definitely gonna have to meet with your lender and see what down payment and what type of program is best for you. You can also adjust the rates and the closing costs to fit your needs. For example, you can pay higher fees up front and have a lower interest rate over the life of the loan, or you can pay lower fees up front and have a higher interest rate. So for me personally, I went with a 3% conventional loan. I chose to have the lower fees up front in exchange for the higher interest rate. Doing this just made sense for me in my situation because it added like $10 each month to the loan, but it saved me like $1,000 up front. So once you go through this with your lender and tell them exactly what you want, they're gonna give you a rough estimate of what your closing costs will be and what your payment will be each month. Now keep in mind, none of this is binding until you get the property and you lock it in. These are all just rough estimates. At this point, assuming all goes well, your lender is gonna send you a pre-approval letter. And this is your golden ticket. This is what shows agents and buyers that you're serious, you're not just gonna waste their time, and that you have the ability to close. So this leads into my 5th and final step. Figure out your criteria and start looking. What size house are you looking for? How many bedrooms? What's your ideal location? What's your ideal price point? Once you know this, you can get online and start looking and start reaching out to agents. You can go directly to seller's agent and represent yourself, or you can hire a buyer's agent. For me personally, I chose to hire a buyer's agent. Being new to this, being a first-time home buyer, first-time real estate investor, I figured it'd be good to have someone with experience that was on my team helping me out. I knew there'd be little things that come up, small things that I personally as a rookie wouldn't notice looking at properties for the first time, but someone that's experienced might notice these things, so I figured, you know what, why not? The seller's agent is paying for it. And since it's free to you, if you trust the person, why not? But from there, you're gonna start looking at properties, touring tons of properties, making multiple offers. It might take a week, it might take months. And honestly, at this point, this is where it gets stressful, but also gets super fun. And I can go on for another 30, 45 minutes about the process going forward of what you need to know before you close. There's so many little minute details and things that you don't really think about until you get into the situation. So that's gonna have to be a topic for another day. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. Please like and subscribe, drop a comment if you think there's anything that I missed with this process, and I'll see y'all next time.